Thank you. I wanted you to see that cute husband of mine because he's going to be leaving us for a while. But I want to just say for a second, because I know we have some veterans in here. I know you've stood before, but I'm going to ask you to stand again. Please stand and let us thank you for all of your service that you've given to our country. Veterans and veteran spouses. God bless you, because freedom isn't free. And thank God for our men and women that put on that uniform every day. And thank God for their families, because it's a family sacrifice, but it's one that's worth doing. I'm so excited to be here. I've got to tell you, I absolutely adore Joni Ernst. She's a dear friend. She's a great senator. Kudos to you for bringing her back and letting her fight for us in D.C. And ladies and gentlemen, I have said this all over the country. I'm going to say it again. You have the best governor in the country with Kim Reynolds. So to give you a little background, if you don't know about me, I was born and raised in a small rural town in South Carolina, 2,500 people, 2 stoplights. You couldn't think about doing something wrong without somebody already telling your mom. But it was a great place to grow up. I grew up playing on farms. My godparents were dairy farmers, and so for all of you farmers out there, you are doing God's work, not just for Iowans, but for all of us around the country, and we thank you for that. My mom started a business out of the living room of our home 30 plus years later. It was a successful company. I started doing the books for her when I was 13. It wasn't until I got to college that I realized that was child labor. But I learned how to stretch a dollar. I went on to Clemson, go Tigers, and graduated with a degree in accounting. I'm an accountant, not a lawyer, in case you didn't know. And that's where, yeah, we could use some accountants, right? Have you seen the debt lately? That's where I met my husband. We dated for 7 years. We've been married for 26. We have 2 children. And when I left Clemson, I went on to the corporate world, and I came back home to the family business. And I happened to tell my mom how hard it was to make a dollar and how easy it was for government to take it. And my mom said, don't complain about it, do something about it. I did not know you weren't supposed to run against a 30-year incumbent in a primary, but ignorance is bliss. And once we realized he was related to half the district, I said, we've got way too many lawyers at the State House. I think they need a really good accountant. And we were elected. Then I ran for governor. I ran against a lieutenant governor, an attorney general, a very popular congressman, and a state senator. I was Nikki Who. I had 3% in the polls, but we worked South Carolina like no one else, and we won. And when I became governor, we took on a double-digit unemployment state. Our state was hurting, and we turned it into an economic powerhouse. By the time I was done, we were building planes with Boeing. We were building more BMWs than any place in the world. We brought in Mercedes-Benz. We brought in Volvo, 5 international tire companies. They referred to us as the beast of the Southeast. We got our unemployment down to 4%. We announced jobs in every county, and we made sure that people were proud of their state again. And now I'm running for president. And I don't need to tell you how bad things are. You don't need to turn on the news to see it. We are almost $32 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. I don't know that our kids are going to forgive us for this. China owns some of our debt. We've now expanded. Medicaid is now been expanded, and 90 million Americans are on Medicaid. 42 million Americans are on food stamps. You look at our education situation, and the lack of transparency in our classrooms is the worst thing they could have ever done to parents. Yet you've got 70% of 8th graders who can't read in this country. You've got 67% of 8th graders who can't or who aren't proficient in math. And let me tell you something. The idea that we have biological boys playing in girls' sports is the biggest women's issue of our time, and we should be fighting that every day. My daughter ran track in high school. I don't even know how I would have that conversation with her. How do we get our girls used to the fact that biological boys are in their locker room? Yet a third of our teenage girls last year seriously contemplated suicide? What are we doing? We're supposed to be raising strong girls. We've got to get back. You see, we have crime at an all-time high. We've got an open border, which is a complete dereliction of duty. I'm not just talking about the border. I actually went 400 miles down that border. You're not ready for what I saw. When you get up in the morning, you get up in the morning, you get your coffee and you go watch the news. These ranchers, when they get up in the morning, they get their coffee and they go see if anyone died while they're crossing the fence. They pick up whatever little kids were left behind and turn them over to Border Patrol. There's rape areas where the women and girls are raped. When I talked to sheriffs, they said before 7 a.m., they've picked up illegal immigrants, they turn them over to Border Patrol, who releases them until their court date years from now. And when I asked Border Patrol about their job, they said, you want to know what we do? We're glorified babysitters. 5 million illegal immigrants. We've had enough fentanyl cross the border that would kill every single American last year. Number one cause of death of adults 18 to 49, fentanyl. And then did you ever think we would see a Chinese spy balloon going over our country? It's a national embarrassment. You've got Russia invading Ukraine. You've got North Korea testing ballistic missiles. You've got Iran building a bomb. But make no mistake, none of that would have happened had we not had that debacle in Afghanistan. The idea that we left Bagram Air Force Base in the middle of the night without telling our allies who stood shoulder to shoulder with us for decades because we asked them to be there. Think about what that told our friends. More importantly, think about what it told our enemies. So that's a lot of bad. But now I'm going to tell you what I told South Carolinians when I became governor. No more whining. No more complaining. Now we get to work. How do we fix it? When it comes to our economy, you claw back the $500 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are out there. Instead of the 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, let's go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud that we know exists. If 11% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. As governor, I had to balance a budget. You have to balance a budget. Why is Congress the only group that doesn't have to balance a budget? When I am president, we will cut the spending. We will cut the debt. We will cut the earmarks, which never should have opened up in the first place. We will make sure that I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. No more debt once and for all. Our kids won't forgive us for it if we don't fix it. We will get transparency in the classrooms. We will make sure we have the backs of law enforcement and take the numbers of our criminals and get our prosecutors to prosecute according to the law. No more weak penalties. And we will make sure when it comes to our border, when I was governor, I passed one of the toughest illegal immigration laws in the country. We did a mandatory E-Verify program that said every business had to show that the people they hired were here legally. We will do a national E-Verify program. We will defund sanctuary cities once and for all. We will stop the hundreds of billions of dollars of handouts that are going there. We will go back to remain in Mexico because guess what? Nobody wants to remain in Mexico. We will keep the provisions of Title 42, and instead of catch and release, we will start to catch and deport. And we will make sure when it comes to our national security that countries know what we expect of them. We will no longer be reactionary. When I was at the United Nations, there were two things that I knew Russia, China, Iran never wanted us to have. They never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We will do both of those. Strong militaries don't start wars. Strong militaries prevent wars. And no more going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia, no more getting dirty oil from Venezuela. We will make sure we take care of all of our oil producers and our ethanol producers in our country. And finally, I'll tell you a story. When we moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, we were condemned by the world, and I was proud to issue the veto, but I was mad. So I went back to my office, and I said, I want you to put a book together. The first column, I want it to be the 193 countries that belong to the UN. The second column, I want it to be the percentage of times they voted with the U.S. and against the U.S. And the third column, I want it to be how much foreign aid we give them. I took that book to the president and I said, stop trying to buy friends. Stop trying to pay off enemies. Last year, we gave over $50 billion in foreign aid. Do you know who we gave it to? We gave it to Pakistan that harbored terrorists that tried to kill our soldiers. We gave it to Iraq that has Iranian influence that says death to America. We gave it to Zimbabwe that's the most anti-American African country out there. We gave it to Belarus, who's holding hands with Russia as they invade Ukraine. We gave money to communist Cuba, who we named a state sponsor of terrorism. And yes, the most unthinkable, we give money to China. When I am president, we will stop giving money to countries that hate America. So we have the solutions and we'll get the job done. But the one thing we have to work on the most is we've got to stop this national self-loathing. We've got to stop the idea that they say America's bad or that it's rotten or that it's racist. I was elected the first female minority governor in history. America's not racist, we're blessed. Our kids need to know to love America. They need to be saying the Pledge of Allegiance when they start school every day. But let me tell you, we've got to start doing this in a way that we can win a general election. It's time for a new generational leader. We've got to leave the baggage and the negativity behind. We've got a country to save. Someone asked me why I was running for president. And I said, my parents came here 50 years ago to an America that was strong and proud and full of opportunities. I want them to know that America again. I'm doing this because I'm a military spouse, and I want Michael and his military brothers and sisters to know their sacrifice means something. We do love our country. I'm doing this for my daughter who just got married, and I see how hard it was for her and her husband to buy a home. And I'm doing this for my son who's a junior in college, and I'm watching him write papers of things he doesn't believe in just to get an A. That's not us. That's not America. 78% of Americans recently said they don't think that their children will have as good of a life as we did. We can't be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. We have a country to save. You know, I'll leave you with this story. When I was at the United Nations, I went to the Simon Bolivar Bridge between Venezuela and Colombia, and I watched thousands of Venezuelans walk in the hot sun for hours to get the one meal they might get that day. Where they were coming from, bless you, where they were coming from, they were killing zoo animals for food. They were fleeing socialism and begging for freedom. We met at a Catholic church where they were getting fed, and all of a sudden they started to surround me. And I wondered, why are they coming to someone who they've never met? And then it hit me. They didn't care who I was. They cared where I was from. In me, they saw America. And in America, they see hope. That's where we need to go again. We need that national purpose. We need to go back to that and understand that we are the best country in the world. But in order to do that, it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage for me to run, and courage for every one of you to know, don't complain about what you get in a general if you don't play in this caucus, because it matters. I have been to Iowa. I think we've done over 25 events. I'm going to keep coming. I'm not doing shortcuts. I'm not going to do a rally and leave you. I'm going to answer every question. I'm going to shake every hand. I'm going to do whatever it takes to earn your support because we've got a country to save, and I know together we'll do it. Go to NikkiHaley.com. God bless you. Thank you so much.